Hey there, my name's Chadwick. I'm a DaVinci Resolve Master Trainer, and this is part one of a free YouTube course I'm offering here so you can learn how to use the camera tracker to do more complicated screen replacements on the Fusion page of DaVinci Resolve Studio. Now, it's basically using a technique that I call find a point. So we use the on-screen widget to push this into place, which the best part about it is that if you can see a point in two different frames, you can solve tracking data for it and stick things into the scene. It's really, really cool. If you want to support the channel and follow along with this multi-part course, go get the footage. It's up on Cutting Club. This is a Sony FX3, S-Log3, S-Gamma3 Cine Blackmagic RAW piece of footage. But project settings are currently set, if you are following along, to color management is turned off. And my Fusion settings are set to start at frame 997. Now, before I open the Fusion page to get started with the camera tracker, I want to take a quick note to look at the metadata, and if there is metadata, because it can help with the camera solve. So if I select the clip, I go to the metadata tab, I'm going to close my inspector, come over here, say to go to the camera details. I'm basically interested in what camera sensor shot it and what was the focal length. Well, if we come down here, we can see focal length was 37 millimeters. So just remember 37 millimeters. And the camera type was a Sony FX3. So full frame camera, 37 millimeters. Let's open the Fusion page to get started. Now, if you're new to the channel, I like to work top down, mid-flow vertical. I'm going to choose one viewer here and turn off my viewing LUT. If you've never worked this way, where your nodes are on the right, I know a lot of people new here have not seen this. It's under Workspace, Layout Presets, Fusion Presets, Mid-Flow Vertical. It's a lot like a lot of fellow nuke artists use. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just trash my media out because I'm not ready to render. I don't want anyone seeing this over there yet. If I load it into the viewer, we'll see it's log footage. We're using the camera tracker, basically all camera trackers, point trackers, planar trackers, Magic Mask, they don't like log footage. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make it 709, give it some contrast and saturation. Shift space, CST, that'll get us into Rec 709. Load that in the viewer, and I've already sort of cheated. It's my default preset here. We got S-Gamma3 Cine, S-Log3 into 709, 709 with tone mapping. That's all we need. Now we can open the camera tracker and get started. Shift space, camera tracker. One of the best reasons to buy DaVinci Resolve Studio, in my opinion, because it's amazing. I'm going to start tracking from the very beginning frame just so you can repeat these exact same values and hopefully get the same results. Before I run the tracks, I like to go to the Options tab over here, turn on Darken Image. It just lets you see things a little bit better. It is sort of a dark shot, so it's probably not too bad otherwise. And then we're going to turn on the Track tab. This basically is a workflow. So we start left, we move right. I'm going to turn on Preview Auto Track Locations, and you can see this is basically giving us points across the scene. It's going to try to do 2D trackers on. I'm also going to turn on bidirectional tracking, which is basically going to track one direction, and then it's going to try to get more tracking length by going the other direction if it can. And then I need to increase this. I want to get more points collected. So if I lower the detection threshold, I lower the minimum feature separation, I've got more tracks that it's going to try to grab. I'll hit auto track, and it's going to track in one direction of the scene, and then it's going to track in the other direction. And it uses these 3D points to figure out the animation of the camera. That's kind of the point. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to come over to the camera room and give it some of the metadata we already know about. So the focal length is 37 millimeters, and then the film gate, which is basically the camera that shot the material, the sensor size, is the Sony FX3, but it's full frame, and that's not an option in here. But there is the Canon 5D, 1D, which was full frame, so that's probably a good approximation. And then we go to the Solve tab. You hit Solve, it starts to run, but I will point out, since we gave it some camera metadata, I'm going to make this go even faster by coming down here and say, we're not going to let it refine the focal length. We're going to just let it sit at that 37 millimeters. I'm also not turning on the lens distortion tool that's in here, which is actually called lens parameters, just so you can see how it does without it, because we can get good results without it. I'm going to hit Solve, and it's basically going through, trying to figure out the scene and the animation of the camera. And we got an initial solve error of 3.1417 pixels, which means when it reprojects those 2D pixels back into this scene, it's on average off by 3 pixels, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's not great. We can make it better. And the way you make it better is you delete the bad ones and you run the solve again. Well, there's some tools in here under track filtering that are going to help you delete the bad ones without you having to go manually select them. Yes, you can do that. I'm going to point to Brian Morsey. Profitless Media has an amazing, really in-depth tutorial on this tracker tool. I'm trying to get through it in 5 to 10 minutes, so go watch that for more in-depth. I'm just going to say apply track selection filters, which is going to select a lot of the bad trackers. You can see it's selected 5,000 of 6,000. And then once you've done that, you can hit delete and then run the solve again. So basically it's operating now on 700 trackers instead of what it had before. And we'll see if it gets that number down. Look at that. It got it under 1. So under 1 in general means it's a reasonable track, but we can do way better. What if we decrease the maximum solve area instead of being 2.5 to making that to be 1? And then that's going to select a bunch more trackers. It's got 335. I'll hit delete. So now we're down to only 400 trackers available. We'll hit solve again. See what that gives us. Look at that. 0.4791 pixels error. I can deal with that as an average. So we're going to call that good and move forward from here. Now, the next step in the camera tracker process is under the export tab, where you go to 3D scene transform, and you'll see in a lot of tutorials, it'll say go to unaligned, select a point, say set from selection, and do the same thing with orientation and go back to aligned. Well, what if it's already decent enough alignment for us to work with? We don't know that until we preview things through a 3D merge. And the camera tracker tool itself actually has an output to look at it, basically what the scene has been solved for, without us hitting the export button. So what I'll do is I'll grab a 3D merge from the toolbar. I'll send the output of the camera tracker into the 3D merge. I'll load that into the viewers. By the way, only one of these outputs here is for the 3D scene. So if you choose the wrong one, just choose the other one. You'll be set. I'm going to zoom out. And what I'm looking for is the camera upright. Does it make sense? Basically with the point cloud. And in fact, it actually already sort of makes sense. I don't really need to necessarily set a ground plane and an origin for something that I'm not going to use anyways, because the whole point of this tutorial, it's called Find a Point, is we're going to actually find the locations of each of the corner pins of the screens so we can use those in our 2D comp. So the camera already is pointing up for the y-axis, which is what I would expect. It's going right there for the x, and the camera's, it's basically, it's good to go. The only thing I might do in the camera tracker tool before I export, since I'm not dealing with lens distortion, is come down here to export options, turn off lens distort, and maybe also turn off auto update. I like to control things. I'm a control freak. I'll hit export, and now it's dumped out all those nodes that is prepared for us in that scene from that solve. Like I said, worth its weight in gold, that camera solver that's built into here. And I've got a 3D scene that is ready to be manipulated. The point cloud and the ground plane I'm not using right now, which they are valuable, especially the point cloud, but I'll just move those. I tend to store those over there by the tracker. And in the next video that's coming out, as soon as this one's uploaded, I'm going to actually show you how we can identify where those exact locations are so you can use those in a corner positioner for your screen replacement. Again, thanks so much for watching. The footage is available on Cutting Club, and because there's so much more to learn, I'll see you in the next video.